Hi, I'm Ted Nash, and this is Joe Temperley.
Hi.
Yeah. And we're dealing with the soprano sax today. Joe and I play together in the Lincoln Center Orchestra, and Joe is just a natural. He plays every instrument with the same kind of verve and vibe, and when I hear him, he doesn't actually play the soprano all that much with the band, but when he picks it up, it feels like something he's playing constantly because he's got this sort of approach to playing every instrument, which is the same. It's just like air, putting the air through and getting a big sound. And I love hearing you play the soprano sax. I wish we'd do that more.
Well, I love to play the soprano. But I didn't get much opportunity in the band because we got two genius soprano players, Ted and Walter, and Victor, of course, as well. So we have three. But that leaves me in the dark. And but I get to play a lot of bass clarinet, so that makes up for it.
Yeah. The soprano sax is not the most common saxophone. I mean, some people have popularized it in the pop world. And it used to be, Sidney Bechet was an incredible soprano saxophone player. And he had this big sound, a big vibrato and everything. He played with a lot of soul. And the soprano was kind of forgotten about, I think, for quite a few years.
For a long time, yeah.
Why do you think that was?
Well, it was neglected because I think a lot of people have trouble with pitch with the soprano, because I think a lot of people force too much air into it, you know, and make it out of tune. So you have to be able to control the airstream. That's what makes the intonation sort of regular.
Yeah, it's a tricky instrument, and I know my favorite things, John Coltrane, he picked it back up, or he was starting to experiment with it on that, and I think that kind of repopularized it. But it took it away, in a way, from the Sidney Bechet kind of New Orleans kind of bass way of playing to a more contemporary, modern style of playing the soprano.
Right. First of all, Bud Johnson was a wonderful soprano player. And also Lucky Thompson and Zoot Sims. Zoot Sims was a real crooner, and he could croon a beautiful melody on a soprano. And Lucky Thompson was one of my particular favorites.
Yeah,
and
me
of course,
too.
Bud was a good friend of mine, and I used to go hear him a lot, and he played great soprano.
Now, Lucky had such a beautiful sound.
Oh, yeah.
He had like a dark, he had a full sound on everything he played. Why do you think he had because a lot of people when they play the soprano, they were trying to get a really bright sound, and they get that almost like that oboe-y quality.
Yeah, but that's because they push the mouthpiece on too far, I think, and put the registers out of tune, and it gets that sort of oboe kind of sound.
Yeah, you get the kind of, that kind of really like the snakes are going to appear any minute.
Yeah, like Snake Charmer.
Yeah. But you don't get that. Now we're playing completely different types of soprano saxophones. Joe's playing the more standard.
Mine is a Selmer Mark VI. Had it a long time. Had it since 1968. Paid $250 for it.
And this is what most people play, is the straight soprano, and it's so in that way it kind of stands out as being a different type of saxophone. I've got a curved model. It's the same exact length tubing, so it gets the same pitches and everything, but it has a slightly different sound, I think.
Yeah,
right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has a media sound, I think. Getting back to the setup, the mouthpiece I play is a Selmer soloist. And I play the same mouthpiece for years. I have the same mouthpiece on the baritone, the same mouthpiece on the bass clarinet, and the same mouthpiece on the soprano. Because I figure, my theory is that if you keep swapping and changing mouthpieces, after 2 weeks they sound the same as they did before. So it's kind of pointless to me.
That's a very interesting point, because we're always searching for that great sound, and the people out there are constantly buying mouthpieces, and they end up sounding like themselves, because basically it's your ears that form the sound and how you produce the sound, so you can get different equipment. I mean, there might be differences in terms of brightness and stuff. I particularly like to have a slightly darker mouthpiece on the soprano, because I think inherently it's a brighter instrument. You know,
somebody told me that these mouthpieces are worth $1,000 each. I can't imagine that.
That's 4 times what you paid for your saxophone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got 3 or 4 of them, you know.
Well, you're rich.
I gave one to Todd Williams. I gave a metal one because I couldn't get anything back from it, you know. You know how you get you can hear something coming back to you, like a good microphone setup. I couldn't get that on a metal one, you know. It just sounded like a dead sound to me.
That's weird, because usually people equate the metal mouthpiece
Coltrane
with,
played a metal one.
yeah, you know, with a brighter, kind of more projecting
Yeah.
sound. I know that the soprano started to become more popular as an instrument that would play lead lines in the saxophone section, right?
That was Jerome that did that, Jerome Richardson.
And Jerome Richardson played lead with the Thad Jones Mel Lewis band.
You know, when I played with the band, there was no music written for the soprano saxophone. He just started playing all the lead parts on soprano.
He just started doing that?
Yeah.
I thought it was Thad's concept to do that.
I don't think so. I think it was Jerome.
And it gave the music a little more modern sound, and I think that's what made the Thad Jones Mel Lewis band be sort of more a modern band. I mean, they're coming out of the tradition of Duke and Basie and all of that,
Yeah.
but of course Thad's genius, brilliant harmonic concept mixed with the use of the soprano lead, and he did a lot of saxophone solos with the soprano lead.
His writing for the saxophones was beautiful.
Yeah.
Just marvelous.
Now-
Every part was a melody. Every part was a song.
Yeah. You played in the band back in, what, the 70s?
I think 69, 70, 71, something like that.
Yeah, that's great. That's another thing that Joe and I share as being members of the Mel Lewis, the Thad Jones Mel Lewis band. I've learned a lot from playing soprano lead by being in that band. And Dick Oates was kind of a mentor to me because he played lead in the band.
Yeah.
And then I started subbing for him. And so you really have to hear, I think, a little differently on the soprano, right? Don't you think? Because again, I think
I don't know. I've never thought of that.
See, Joe, I'm saying Joe is a natural. He doesn't have to think about this or talk about it very much. He just does it. He hears the music and he plays. And whatever instrument you put in his hand, he's going to play. But a lot of people, I think, kind of struggle with the soprano, trying to figure out how to play, because it is different. It's a challenge. Technically, I think the sound is a big issue.
Yeah, the thing about the soprano is, or any instrument, I think, is that you hear the pitch momentarily before you play it. And I think that's why a lot of people play out of tune on the soprano, because they can't hear the pitch properly.
That's an extremely important point, which someone told me that once. Hear the note before you play it.
Right.
Then you have a much better chance of not only it coming out, and it might be the case especially with the brass player or flute player that doesn't have an octave key, but you hear the note, you're gonna land somewhere close to the pitch.
Yeah, that's what I tell people, that when they play in a high register, I say, don't slide up to it. Just nail the, hear the note and then nail it.
So how would you do that, like on a high note? Can you
I can't play high notes on a soprano.
Well, like instead of doing like what you're talking about, well, what do you mean you can't play high notes on the soprano? So, I mean, that's it. Just
That's
hear
my
the note,
limit.
come in. And he's talking about, a lot of people will do this kind of scoop up into the note.
Don't do that.
It's like singers who are not sure about, they don't know where the pitch is going to be, so they scoop into it to give themselves a chance to land it. But you've got to actually hear the note. Da.
And hit it with your tongue. That's important too.
Always try to make the sound as round as possible, especially when you're dealing with a very bright instrument. So
say do, 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 like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's going to get the note to pronounce.
Right.
And then you got to think about opening up your throat a little bit and dropping your jaw. One thing that I see a lot of people do when they're playing up in the upper register of a saxophone, especially the soprano, is pinching down to try to get the note to come out.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing where you're pinching on something.
Or you see soprano players playing like this. With your throat locked up, because you can't do that. You play any saxophone, you got to hold your head up and let the air come out. And also play with a straight back and let the air come out of your back, because there's a lot of air in your lungs and the back, and you got to let that air come out. And that's a secret of the soprano, I think. Is not to blow too loud into it, and to play a constant airstream, and let the air come out of your body, and be like Pavarotti and sing.
That's a great point, to always be singing through your
and
instrument.
hold your head up. Ah, when you see a good singer, he never sings down here. He always sings up here.
So would you say like practicing is always keeping your head up?
I have a thing with Lou Tabakin, because I see him with his picture, and every picture he's got his saxophone holding it up here, his head up, and I just send him an email, head up.
So do you have any kind of practice routine on a soprano? At this point, you probably just pick it up and play it.
I just pick it up and play it.
Yeah.
I played with soprano with my students at Manhattan the other day for 3 hours because I was coming here and I thought I better put some time in with the soprano because I hadn't played it in a while.
Right, right. I think one thing to help the overall sound is to think about playing the low register of the soprano and getting that kind of dark, warm sound to begin with when you're practicing. So that kind of warmth, and then if you can continue that warmth up through all the registers of the horn, instead of pinching down or trying to get a bright sound up high. And continue that warmth throughout all the registers. I think it sounds better.
Another theory of mine is that you can't play unless you hold your head up and let the air come out of your body. And you know, you can't force air into it. You can't because that gets a dead sound. You know, that's about as loud as you can play that F, but it's not a dead. It's a sound with vibration. Because when you play too loud, you get a sound like that. You get a dead sound.